Hey everyone, welcome to our parenting night. My name is Polly and my husband John Carlos and I are the youth pastors at Newport Church. And we're not parents in this season, so you can imagine how much kid free time we've had, which has been a lot. And you guys came up in our conversations. So we want to start off this night by saying you're doing a great job. You're amazing. The fact that you are here wanting to be a better parent speaks volumes. And we would love to get to know you. So in the chat room, please leave your name, how many kids you have, what their ages are, and maybe some challenges or questions that you have that we can answer for you. We're about to hear from Daniel Patterson. He is a father, educator, and mental health coach, and he has a ton of experience in helping others. This includes being a secondary education English teacher and assistant principal for several years. He's currently a director of education for a therapeutic high school in Los Angeles. He's got his own coaching firm where he helps youth and parents and educators. And on top of all of that, he has written 2 books on how to parent well. So if you want more information on Daniel, you can go to pattersonperspective.com. So we don't need to tell you guys that the whole world of parenting went to another level, whether or not you were ready for it. But we hope that tonight helps you with some practical ways to help make the best of this season for your family. We are going to be doing a live Q&A over Zoom with Daniel Patterson after this. So if you have any questions, we would love to have you comment them in the chat section. And we're going to go over a few of those questions in our 30-minute Zoom. So take the time now to lean in, to listen, and to learn what you can do to make the best out of this season.
Good evening, Newport Church. I'm Daniel Patterson here with your weekend update. Just kidding. I am in the world headquarters, also known as my garage, where I have set up camp to figure out how to be a dad, a business owner, a teacher, a husband, a churchgoer, all of the things that I used to do, moving every which way, 100 miles an hour, probably like many of you. And figuring out what does it look like, how to do all of those things. Specifically, I'm here to talk to you about education. A little bit about me, if you don't know, I was a middle school and high school teacher for 10 years and an assistant principal for 4 years. And in the last 4 years, I have been working as an educational coach. Essentially, everything that we see in the news right now, when the wheels fall off the wagon, when the systems stop working, when school isn't what it used to be and families need change, they come to me. I also run an alternative high school in West Los Angeles where we focus mostly on independent study model and online school. So just so happened to be that a lot of the things that people need right now in the way of advice for keeping their students motivated, keeping them learning, keeping them less fearful or anxious about what school will look like in the future. Those are all things that I do anyways, and I've been doing for the last 4 years. So I wanted to share some of my most common, let's say our FAQs, the things that get asked the most to me. And they're different for every kid. So I have, in my own home, we have a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 9-year-old. Bro, it's like, do I have Velcro on my shirt? I might have Velcro on my shirt because they are all over us. And I'm sure that's what there are for you. Now, if you have older kids, they might be reverse Velcro, like almost like taking, when you used to play with trains and they're magnetic and you go the opposite ends and you try to put one and then whoa, right? They're just avoiding you like the plague. Some of that might be, let's start with the older kids. School is completely abstract now. It's pretty much asynchronous, meaning it doesn't happen at the same time and definitely not in the same way that it used to. So here you are as a responsible parent, trying to parent. You're fearful, like, I don't want my kid to fall behind. What if they don't learn Spanish or math, or what if they're not reading their novels? And so next year when they go back to school, they're going to be behind. Newsflash, they're all going to be behind, right? So I think the easiest way to address this, and the first sort of tenet or rule or suggestion I'm going to give you applies for everyone. Regardless of age and stage, really, in my opinion, is the concept of a learning block. Now, the older you are in age, in grade, the longer and more frequent the learning blocks should occur. Now, kids thrive in structure. And we're starting to see why, right? If you, why do schools have bell schedule? Why do they move from point A to point B? A lot of those things that people don't maybe like about school, they now miss about school, especially because students thrive in structure. So the concept of a learning block can be a 30-minute period of time, a 45-minute period of time, 60, and an hour and a half. So 30 to 90 minutes, depending on the age and stage. Now, my third grader, for example, her school got mobilized pretty early. So she has a live Zoom call with her teacher every day at 10 o'clock, Monday through Friday. And then she has about 3 hours of schoolwork, right? So her first learning block is that 45 minutes to an hour that she is with her teacher. And then after that, we stop and she takes a break. We have some playtime, some free time, knowing that later in the day, I'm going to put 2 more 1-hour blocks for her to work on school. Now, a lot of people will say, well, Daniel, there is no work. The school's not giving work. Now, this is my second tip, which is to reimagine your concept of learning. So learning in this moment, learning from this moment, being part of the moment is much more than can they do their times tables or did they read To Kill a Mockingbird on time. Those things, those are like benchmark assignments that you may or may not do, and it's not the hill that I want you as a parent to die on. Really, learning can be anything. For my kids, for example, here in the garage, which I have a whiteboard behind me, so you can't see what it looks like, I've made a maker space. So every random piece of anything that I can find is on the table just over there, and they play. So if there is no learning to be done in the conceptual way where we think, well, it has to be signed by a teacher, it needs to be a worksheet, it has to be something that they could turn in, upload, email, think again. Learning can be anything. So try to establish a learning block, learning blocks for your children, and also think outside the box. Now, let's say this. Let's say you have a child that is struggling in a subject. In fact, they hate the subject. And it's creating drama in your home. Tension, tension, tension. Again, dust it off and move on. This is not a time that I'm going to cram algebra down an 8th grader's throat if algebra creates so much tension and so much stress for the remainder of the day, 24-hour a day together. I would pick my battles very carefully. One thing that's worked well for us is that my daughter gets frustrated with some of her subjects. So we have her do remote tutoring with her older cousin who is 12. He is capable of just even over Zoom or FaceTime, sitting with her while she does it, and she can ask him a question. Do they stay focused the whole time? No. Do they get off task? Yes. Is he the best teacher? No. Does any of that matter? Not at all. Look, I taught 7th grade for 10 years. Those kids are social beings. Kids are social beings. And when you pare down the coming and going of school and lunch and break and passing periods and taking attendance, and then the teacher didn't plan enough, the amount of learning that goes on in school is not as much as we think it is. So when you think about a magic number, I would say the magic number is 3. I would like to see kids learning in some way, shape, or form for 3 hours a day. 3 hours a day. Now, I'm no rocket scientist, but the way that I like to shape it is an hour in the morning, an hour midday, and an hour in the afternoon. Those are to keep a steady pace to the day. Like I said before, kids thrive in structure, and I'm just kind of freestyling here, so forgive me if I'm all over the place, but kids thrive in structure, any age and stage. Adults thrive in structure. I mean, I've been all over the place as like just as a person. All of my structures seem to be evaporated, and I've had to rebuild them. And we really focused on it. And the first few weeks of this quarantine were really challenging, but we've turned a big corner. And I think that's because we figured out how to create a structure that's reliable and doable and a good fit for our family. Now, if you look on Instagram, I love the gram. I love Instagram, Patterson Perspective. You can follow me. But when this started happening, everyone's posting these really grandiose, really, really, really complicated, color-coded charts. Like chart, like it's like almost like IKEA instructions. I want you to think basic. What are some basic, reliable structures that you could put into place for your kids? Because research will tell you, and my experience proves to me as a professional and a father and an educator, that the more structure that kids have that's reliable, and what I mean by reliable is that they can anticipate it, they know what it is, they understand what it looks like, it's not always changing. So we have a schedule, we have our 5-year-old and 2-year-old, right? Their structure is basic. But our third grader, who's 9, and any third grader or up, really, can understand the concept of a schedule. So we have her make her schedule the night before. So when she wakes up in the morning and she has on her closet taped her schedule for the day, the first thing that she asks me is not, what are we doing today? What are we doing today? What are we doing today? That's a very, very frustrating question. I don't know what we're doing today. What are you doing today? Right? And as a teacher, the first thing that kids always ask when they come into any classroom, and I've taught all the way up to seniors in high school, they could be, a 4'1", 12-year-old or a 7'2", 18-year-old in high school. And the first thing they would always ask is, what are we doing today? So as an educator, I would always put the agenda on the whiteboard, right? You put what they're doing, and when they walk in, they can look at it, they can see it. And even if they don't like school, they take a breath because at least they know what's coming. They know what to anticipate. So I want you to think integrating a reliable, doable schedule. Does that mean it can't change? No, of course it can change. Maybe one day the wheels fall off the wagon. You have to Omaha, you have to switch it up, do what works for your family, but the next day, try to reset. The other thing I recommend doing is having a service-facing stance. What do I mean by service-facing? Service-facing is we have this opportunity, we have this gift of time, and we've heard a lot about that. And a lot of you are like, yeah, you can take your time. I don't want any more time. I want them back in school. I want to go back to work. I want to go back to Angel Game. I hear you. I can't make that different. But I can say that you have a time gift. And if you have a high school student, and I swear from here for the next several years, every student applying to college is going to write an essay on COVID-19, the great quarantine of 2020. And as they should, it's a crazy experience for all of us. But I don't want you just to focus on or have your kids focus on what they're losing in this. I could say, yeah, I could choose to focus on my finance. I'm losing money from my clients. I could focus on loss of activities or loss of normalcy or loss of structure. Or I can pivot and take a service-facing lean and think about what can I do to make a difference? Now, with kids, like I said before, one of their learning blocks, let's say they're super school adverse and they're just fighting with you about their schoolwork, fine, don't do it. Replace it with something else. Replace it with something service-facing. So this could be FaceTiming a relative. This could be writing letters to a nursing home. This could be phone banking for a politician. This could be figuring out how to get volunteer for the church, for Newport Church. This could be figuring out what nonprofits need help, maybe. There's a lot of ways to virtually contribute to our society, and thinking of giving kids, empowering them. Kids like to feel like they belong, like they have meaning. And this is what's happening with the kids that I work with and kids all over the country. we are having the great American identity crisis, from adults to kids. And I am a benefactor of that identity crisis, right? Because here, I'm an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker, a father, a business owner, right? Those are my titles, and I wear them like badges of honor. And I think about my value on what I've accomplished or what I've done. So we have kids that are used to playing baseball and soccer and volleyball and lacrosse and being in the plays and dancing, taekwondo, all of these things, right, that we're used to them doing. And now they don't have those. And things like GPA, like I would bet you a grand sum of money that every public school in California is going to give a pass-fail grade. They're not going to tell you now because they don't want to hear about it and get all the emails. But I bet you they're going to give a pass-fail grade. What does that mean? That means a GPA, this big validator that we give out. Oh, I'm 4.0, right? That doesn't mean anything anymore because nobody has a 4.0. Everyone just passed or you failed. So the ACT, the SAT, these big college entrance exams, they're gone. I was trying to help a junior in high school register for the SAT yesterday. You go into their website, you can't register. The tests have been canceled. Again, kids have been studying for this test for like 2 years. What everyone always wants to know, what did you get on the SAT? What did you get on the ACT? I got nothing. I didn't get a ticket, right? So then they're future tripping. And our kids are having an identity crisis. So by having a service facing lean and allowing them to have a choose your own adventure learning at home with guardrails, of course, this is going to help in that sort of self-identification phase that we're all in. Like, what is my purpose? What is my value from the inside out without the validators that we get? For us as a family, this has been a very interesting time. And working with kids, I still meet around 15 to 20 high school kids over Zoom every week, and the conversations are all the same. And there's generally two types of kids right now. There's the kids that are they love it. They could not be happier to be home, maybe because socially they don't love school. Their peer group isn't friendly to them. They don't miss it. They might miss their activities, but they don't miss being at school. And I want you to pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. Because when all of this comes unstuck and we get back in motion, you don't have to take everything with you. And the way that you were doing school doesn't have to be the way that you do school in the future as a family. Conversely, if your student misses it tremendously, then I would look at searching for ways that they can feel validated without so many exterior validators. Now, it's good to love school. I'm not knocking kids that love school. School, when it works really well. But I would also, talk to them about that. Our kids are in a grieving cycle. Like I said, they've lost a lot of things, access to their friends, their schedule, their routine. And if your house is anything like my house, there's a lot of tension with my wife and I, not between us, like against each other, but between us, financially. Financially, there's a lot of unknown, right? And that can create a lot of stress and a lot of tension. And early on, I found myself as a father taking my stress out on my kids. And it's not their fault, right? It's not their fault. So creating structure for me meant, as a parent, that I also put myself, just like my kids have learning blocks, I have to have work blocks. So my wife and I have alternated when we're working, or who's on first, who's with the kids and who's not with the kids. Because when there is tension in the home, kids don't learn. They don't learn formally. They don't learn informally. In fact, they probably just become very anxious and they isolate. 35% of all kids receive any kind of mental health care at school. Now, I'm not suggesting your kids need mental health care. What I'm saying is, I want you to take this opportunity to check in with your kids. I've talked to a lot of high school parents who are sort of quick to dismiss their kids' feelings. Like, oh, you're just at school, you don't have to worry about bills, you don't have to. And so by not validating or listening to their grief cycle or where they're feeling stuck, that kid is thinking, well, then I'm not going to tell you anything ever again. If you don't care about this, what else don't you care about? So I think that checking in with your kids in this moment is a great way. Now, some kids don't want to talk to you like I told you about earlier. So I would say that looking at things like journaling, art, drawing, painting, building, these are all really good ways for kids to get out their emotional and creative energy, as well as express how they're feeling. And it's a channel to emote. It's a channel to emote. So pen and paper is one kind of learning, or the Chromebook and Google Classroom all have their time and place. But everyone is frozen right now. All learning is frozen right now. So research shows that the #1 indicator for success moving forward, they call it the summer slide, which is the time between school lets out, let's say in June, and picks back up after Labor Day. They call it the summer slide. Kids lose, or they don't retain so much of their information, but the kids that read for 30 minutes to an hour every day, somehow, even though they're not doing any math, no science, no history, no writing really, they just read, they don't experience a summer slide. So modeling reading, any kind of reading, they could read the same book over and over again. It could be a graphic novel. I want you to read to them, with them, next to them, keep them reading in some sort, way, shape, or form. If you read to them, if nothing else, then when they go back to school next year, they will not be too far behind. So I'm just kind of wrapping up here. I'm trying to think if there's any other like kind of nugget or frequently asked question that I get. Let's see, learning blocks, motivation. If your kid doesn't want to do anything, right? If the power has completely flipped on its belly and you don't get marked tardy and they won't do their schoolwork, then I want you to think about the incentives that you have in your house and the motivators that you have in your house. Incentives are, what are they doing or what are they getting for following through with their obligations at home? And motivators would be maybe fear of loss, like what do they lose? Traditionally, I'm not a person that likes to dangle the carrot, like, oh, if you get a 4.0, I'll give you $100, because extrinsic motivation doesn't prove to yield long-term results. But this is a temporary situation. And so you have to think creatively, like what is going to make the family run smooth? For us, we're doing Amazon dollars, right? Because everyone wants to buy something on Amazon or Target dollar. And so if they do something above and beyond, if I need Leighton to watch Silas for 20 minutes so I can take a shower and Caroline, my wife, is working in the garage, it's her turn, then I might offer her 2 Target dollars, right? Something to motivate her above and beyond that then she can cash in, and then we can do a Target drive-through order. Maybe she gets a new book or a new journal or a new set of pens to color with. So, and for your older kids, I would start building a bridge to something long-term. So maybe they are working toward something that they get once this is over, and keep track of it. I mean, again, not like you have to go crazy with a sticker chart, but find something with incentives or motivators that work. And traditionally, kids are either motivated by things or people. And even though your kids might not want to be around you in this quarantine, I think you'll notice that what kids crave more than anything is attention. You're like, how could you need this much attention when we are actually in the same house all day? I don't know why. They want that attention. So whereas my older daughter is motivated by things, my middle daughter, Ro, she could not care less about your things. She is motivated by people. So that is one-on-one time. That is a special activity with mom or dad. So you have to figure out and identify and hone in on each child in your home and parent them differently. They might have different schedules. They might have different expectations. They might have different struggles, and that's okay, because they are, even though they're from the same home, like our 2 daughters could not be more different. And then there's our 2-year-old who is Captain Velcro, crawling up the walls, tons of energy. Give me your address, I'll send him over. Just kidding. So anyways, anything else that you can think of? We're going to go on our Zoom call now. Hop over. Let's talk. Let's just Q&A. Fire them off. I've run a lot of webinars with parents lately, and I'll have spitfire questions. I can give you personal advice. I can give you general advice. I can expand on any of these topics. So if you want any help, join me in the Zoom room right now. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. I'm dressed like a pilot. These are noise canceling headphones, which I need because I have 1,000 children. But I'm actually moved into the bedroom from the garage because it's too warm. But I'm doing a bunch of webinars like this. I'm running 2 parent groups for 2 elementary schools. And I'm also running a high school parent group. So, and then in my private clients, I just, because I have kids in elementary school, but my target audience of clients is middle school, high school. Just sort of I'm not a parenting expert. I mean, I'm very good at dealing with other people's children. But, it's definitely a trial and error. So if you have any questions, and I also am going to drop in the comments here in a minute, there's a website that has over 900 free educational subscription that are normally subscriptions that are free right now because of COVID. So they are like, choose your own adventure. They're literally anything that your children could be interested in that would normally be like a monthly fee or a yearly fee that are free. All of the costs are waived. And so you can just dig in there, and it's categorized by age and what it is and the hyperlink to it.
Wow.
So that should buy you a lot of, if you're feeling frustrated or stuck, or you just need more ideas to how to supplement, then go digging in there, because I found just jackpots of things for my kids that would normally be several $100s a year for free, indefinitely right now.
Thank you, Daniel. So let's get into some of the questions that have come in. We have one from Jana, and it says, love the part of incentivizing the kids. Any suggestions for keeping track of said incentives?
Yeah, so we have on our high enough so that the kids can't reach, but we basically just have our Amazon or Target dollar chart, and we add dollars to it. Now they earn $1 for every day. We're doing that. They earn $1 for every day that they follow their school schedule or a family schedule. Like, so they don't lose dollars. So we can only earn money. We don't lose it because I don't want to create that negative relationship with like the takeaway game. But we just do it on our wall. We have a chart, and then we can bootleg and Audible. Like if I need an extra something done that's above and beyond like their normal expectation, then I can say, if I'm desperate, like I'll give you 5 Target dollars if you do this. But just the standard daily approach is just tiny. Like you get $1 for today. So at the end of the week, you would have $7, that you could find an activity to do, because kids will say like, I'm bored, but research shows that being bored is actually one of the healthiest things for your brain. So anytime that your kid is telling you that they're bored, you can say, you're welcome. Because our kids are overscheduled. So actually allowing them time for their brain to repair and to be creative. And we use technology for sure, but we definitely have tech times, and that's not the pacifier I would encourage you to embrace, even like personally. Like set your own limits for social media and looking at the news. I don't watch the news, so I don't know what's going on. But just you want your kids to be bored. It's very healthy.
I love that. And I love that they don't lose anything, that they can only earn.
Right.
So that way they have a healthy, I want to move towards this, but they also don't feel like I can just lose this all in one moment.
Yeah, because I'm so emotional. When I get really angry, it wouldn't be beyond it'd be like, you lose all your money, and then my wife would have to come in and be like, your dad, he's just really stressed. You didn't really lose all your money. And then I look like I have no, So the not losing is more of like an emotional throttle for me as a parent, as a person. I'm a middle child, so I'm emotional anyways. And I'm an adult, so I'm stressed. So the not losing is important just for adult regulation, I think.
Wow.
Okay, awesome. I love that. One of the questions that someone asked me to ask you was, how do you deal with temper tantrums, especially associated with schoolwork or keeping with the schedule?
I let them ride. Actually, our 5-year-old Rowan which some of you might see her at church and not know this about her, but she is savage. And she throws the largest temper tantrums ever. And she'll throw things. She like rips things off the wall. She goes full send. In talking with our my therapist, what we discovered is we really just have to let her go through the anger process. The more attention that I give it, the longer it lasts. So it's not unusual for 2 of 3 or all 3 of my children to be literally rolling on the ground crying because they're so frustrated with something. And I'm just like listening to my music, cooking dinner. I just see no evil, hear no evil, because that, as long as they're not being violent to another person in the house, or really being violent, I tend to let it run its course. Most child emotions are based on 2 factors, and that is worry and fear. So when your child is angry, typically it's because they're worried about something or they're fearful about something.
Wow.
So I would recommend just reassuring them that this is not the race to nowhere. There's plenty of time to catch up if you're feeling behind. And everyone across the entire country is slowed down right now. So if you're having a hard time with the subject, that's okay. But I would really encourage you to pair them with an older kid that they think is cool, that can tutor them just pro bono, and just sit with them on Zoom and do homework with them, because they will not have that visceral reaction with somebody that they want to impress. Just like your kids don't act like that with other adults, they will not act like that with a kid that's like 4 years older than them. So that would be my advice.
I love that. I have the next question, and it is, how do I remain sane as a teacher's aide with no instruction on how to navigate the platforms being used?
I think, is the platform Google Classroom?
That is a good question. I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Someone said it was a question. The person.
It is. Now, what I've discovered, is this elementary school level?
Middle school.
Middle school.
I'm going to ask the question.
So I would take some of the pressure off of yourself, that perfection seeking, and put it squarely back on in the hands of the educator and the middle schooler, because middle schoolers are very tech savvy. They can put up a VPN to go around your Wi-Fi guards all day. They can hack into your phone and change your settings. They can do all of those things. So some of those initial complaints that they'll have, you really have to model problem solving skills. And so the first time I would sit down with them and help them write an email to their teacher, or have them like model how to do it, and maybe even write it down. And then the next time that they get stuck, you would just say, this is the protocol, that this is what happens when you get stuck. I know my daughter gets stuck a lot, and most teachers now have Zoom office hours, kind of like this, where for an hour, a few times a week, they're just hanging out, and any kid can dip in and ask questions. So I would reroute them to that.
I remember when I was in school, I was always kind of afraid to ask my teachers questions, but when I finally got over that and I did go up to them and ask questions, I found that they were very happy to answer them at length. Oh
yeah, the teachers will. And even if you don't want to ask your teacher, you've got to have a friend. Mm-hmm. Like we all have that nerdy friend who's just like on it, like they just know things. How do you know how to do that? They just do. So I would also, we have to use the tools in the toolbox, but that whole like fear of keeping up and getting behind in low grades, I assure you that there will be more grace given in this season than in the history of school.
That's reassuring.
Jonathan, got to unmute.
Yeah, we'll unmute you. Let's see. Unmuted.
No, he's muted again.
I'll unmute you. Oops. Okay.
Can I ask a question? I mean, hopefully this is helpful for everybody else, but I'm talking about a school that you're very familiar with, Daniel, seeing as you educated 3 of our kids, and if you were still there, would have been educating London right now. One of my biggest challenges, and that was my question before, how do I stay sane when I'm a teacher's aide and I'm not being paid for it, and I'm being expected to keep up with all the schoolwork, is zero margin for any assignments that are late, any assignments that are, there may be technical problems because teachers are, first of all Zoom calls have been canceled for middle school. There's no Zoom calls.
Okay.
Because the first Zoom call was an absolute pandemonium. 150 kids, all with their phones unmuted and their background noise, and it was a nightmare. Mr. E. Anyway, so no Zoom calls.
Okay.
And then there are two platforms. There's Google Classroom and the School Loop.
Right.
And if the work is submitted on School Loop, sometimes it doesn't go through and they're told they're graded an F because it doesn't come in on time. Other times, if then the advice comes, no, you have to submit it on Google Chrome. So for me, I guess the question is, and I've been emailing some of the teachers, the question is, that puts a lot of pressure on, because if you miss an assignment and it's an F because it didn't meet the deadline or there was some technical problem.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I have felt like picking up the phone, trying to talk to the principal and saying, this, I have not received, as a parent, we haven't received any education
on how to do it.
This and what all this is doing. And I loved what you were saying about the fact that kids can't learn in a stressed environment.
Right.
That very process actually defeats the whole purpose. So I know it's a long question. But
sure. Well, I'm gonna ask you a few, or I'm gonna give my advice. First is that I want you to consider what the worst case scenario is in reality if she gets an F on an assignment. It's inconsequential. I'll answer it for you. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, right? It's all part of a learning experience. You're learning to work outside your comfort zone, adopt a system that you're not used to, similar to being a new employee in a new company. So those are life skills. It builds resilience and grit.
Yeah.
Two is you're not captain of the ship, right? So that ship, you're captain of the ship, but this little dinghy that she's on, this is her ship. And so you have to transfer the authority over to her, because if you still have one foot in the boat and one foot out of the boat, then she's always going to default to, you have to figure it out, it's your fault. You're always going to be a bridge to accepting that responsibility, right or wrong. Right. So I think at that middle school age, having more of a hands-off approach with her and letting her build autonomy will decrease tension in the home. It will allow you to play father, not teacher. And it will mobilize her to figure it out. Right. Too many cooks in the kitchen, can make a bad dish. The other thing, which I'll email you or I can email anyone here, is that I've developed for my clients a simple calendar that they fill out. It's pen and paper. They keep it on their desk. What is the assignment? When is it due? And what platform do I turn it in on? And so when we have kids that are working in several platforms, we have to capture all that information into an old school pen and paper list. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that filling that planner out every day is tied to any phone use. You don't have your phone unless you fill that out, period. End of story.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was really good.
The next question is, how do you create safe boundaries between you and your child? Everywhere I go, my child follows me.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Me too. I told you, Velcro. Do I have Velcro on my shirt? That is a real dilemma. So part of that is in our calendar. We have a few systems that we're using in our house that work really well. One is that we have on the other side of this door, I have a sign that I take up and down with the logo of my business that says Patterson Perspective. So if that is up, that means I'm not available. Okay, unless the house is on fire. The other thing that we do is sometimes my wife will need to do like pay bills and things up at the kitchen table. So there's a cup. If the cup is up, you may approach the bench. If the cup is down, you may not approach the bench. And these things sound really like trivial, like that would never work with my kid. They will when they are tied to incentives and motivators. And kids love clarity. So if you have a few simple systems in your house that you commit to for the next 8 weeks, the first week will be really annoying, and then the next 7 weeks will be much less annoying. But if the kid doesn't know like their approach, if you're trying to land a plane in an airport and nobody gives you like your descent pattern or path, you'll have a lot of accidents. So we have to let them know how to land into the conversation. We also have scheduled in our house, we do like a 90-minute quiet time. So that is like, I'm off the clock. I need time for me. I usually use that time to exercise because I need to exercise for my mental health and my physical health. But we do a 90-minute, everyone's on their own. Yeah, it's usually the 2-year-old's napping. That's how we do it. We tie it to the nap, and then the other 2 have to do whatever they do. And that is when I will hand over the tablet. You go, if you're going to watch your shows, now is the time when I'm off the clock. So those are some of the ways that I would recommend doing it. And having conversations. I think, again, as a parent, if you're feeling angry, that's usually because you're worried or you're stressed. So you have to look within and figure out, like, what am I worried about? What am I stressed about? And how is that coming across as anger? Because I can even communicate to my 9-year-old and say, look, I'm really like worried that if I am paying attention to you and I miss a meeting, that I could lose a client. And that makes me concerned because I need to be working for our family. And then she's like, oh, okay. So they can get it when they're older. But just like physical cues for younger kids work really well.
Very good. Kids are really good with knowing where their boundaries are.
Right. If you build a fence, they play in the yard.
Yep, I love that. Okay, next question is, for the daily schedules, what if you don't know what you're doing that day? With a ha-ha at the end.
Well, I don't think you need to write down, again, think about it in blocks and not so much as what specifically you're doing in that block. So you might say there's an art block, or there's an outside block, or there's a quiet time block, or a reading block, or a creativity block, which might be Legos and blocks and things like that. So simplify. I don't need you to write the menu. I need you to write, like, what time are we eating? So again, kids like the more reliable and consistent it is, the less anxious they'll be and the less they're going to nag you about what they're doing. So for our younger one who's 5, like, we did it on the internet and we made one that has pictures, right? So they're visual cues that go with the writing, because she can't write her own schedule. That would take like 3 hours of me writing it. So I think just think about the categories that you want to accomplish. Give yourself some buffer and keep it very, very basic. This is not a time to be extra. This is a time to find the path of least resistance for the health of the home and the tension, so we can get through this season.
Very good. I would be the person, if I were a parent, to have like 20 hours worth of writing some schedule down that takes them 5 minutes.
Look, our kids are so much more capable than we allow them to be. And what I've noticed with kids in general is that because they've reverted into the family home, it's like they've lost a lot of their capabilities. But that's a learned behavior. It's an instinctual behavior to begin with. So initially, like, they're going to revert back. But accepting that as a parent and allowing it to manifest into like a long-term habit is a choice. So I will often say, figure it out to my kids. And then they roll around on the ground and cry. And then what? Then they figure it out.
Yeah, I like how you said earlier too, that you're growing grit and resilience in them. So
Right.
They didn't turn in their project correctly and they get a fail on it. That's part of something that they're going to need to learn in the future. And learning how to cope with those things is a really big lesson that we can teach them in this season.
Yeah.
I agree.
I love that. I saw that Elliot has a question. I'm going to unmute and let them.
Sorry, it's my daughter's name. She zoomed last. Sorry. My question is more like time management. I've got 4 kids. Sorry, they're screaming.
That's okay.
I've got one that's in 4th grade, I've got one who's in special needs kindergarten. I've got one who's in preschool, an 18-month-old.
Okay.
I'm pretty much wearing thin on like patience and organization. I don't have time to myself anymore. My husband's working in the garage because that's where he's working right now. I guess I want to know how to manage my time, manage, their schoolwork, and then, give myself a break.
Right.
I just feel like I'm trying to be realistic with myself, but I don't really know what to do.
Okay, that's a good question. I think the first thing that I would say is give yourself permission to not do all the things. We want to do all the things, and we put this pressure on yourself to be a perfect mom, and you don't need to be a perfect mom. Nobody signed up for this. And so right now, the parenting model that I want you to embrace is good enough parenting. You just need to be a good enough parent. And the good enough parent starts with self-care. So certainly for me, because I have 3 kids and I don't have 4, I get up really early because I need time for myself. So if I have to get up at 4:30 in the morning or 5 in the morning to drink my coffee in silence, then I do that. The other thing is that I work, my wife is pretty much with the kids all day as I'm working. And that's not, she's used to working full time, and that's not her thing. That's not her chosen model. So she is struggling. So one of the things that I've done, and I don't know that your husband can do this, but I definitely block off time where I am not working, to give her time to exercise, to binge watch Ozark on Netflix, to do whatever she needs to do to feel like she's a person and not like a child, just like a daycare provider or a camp counselor. So ditch perfection, and start simple. Try to figure out where can I carve out 90 minutes? Maybe it's only 2 45-minute chunks, but research shows that even 90 seconds of sitting still and not saying anything and not hearing anything can recharge your productivity for the next 4 hours. So even if you're only capturing 20-minute increments, every 2 hours you get a 20-minute break, and you schedule that into your day with your husband, then I think you will feel a big difference.
Wow. That's awesome. All right, I think we have time for at least one more question. So we have another question from Jana. When you have a child that takes 30 to 40 minutes to complete an exercise that should only take 5 to 10, how do we help them approach with a good attitude so they can get things done and completed?
Well, it sounds like, and I don't know the details, but that sounds like perfectionism to me. I don't know if it's, is that a perfectionism trait? Like it's taking so long because they need it to be perfect? No, it's just taking them a long time.
Trying to unmute her.
Sorry, yeah, no, it's more or less just like not wanting to do it.
Not wanting to do it.
Yeah.
I would pair them with an older student.
Okay.
So I would look at who is like a baseball player that's a few years older that they really look up to, who's in like sort of your mom circle that you could reach out to, and do an exchange that way, because he will not behave that way when partnered with somebody 4 years older than him.
Okay.
And even if they just did it 30 minutes twice a week, they could probably get everything done in that block of time.
Oh, totally.
So stop trying to do it. I would just like completely audible and do something, try a new approach. And I would also say that if they don't do it, I wouldn't rescue them. So I would say that, this expectation that you finish this in this amount of time. And if you do, you get X. And if you don't, you don't get X.
Okay.
Very unemotional delivery. They can scream and be mad, and that's fine. We'll try again tomorrow. Because you do that 2 days in a row, on the third day, it'll be done.
Well, and I guess the challenge is I might need to adjust incentives or something, because it's like they do enough to get by, but not the complete amount to like do things properly. So
yeah, and I would look at and I'll Polly, I guess I'll email it to you and then you can email it to everybody. But I would look at this website, this database that I'm going to share with you that has all of these subscriptions, And I would find something, I would have them go through and choose something that they're going to have ownership of.
Okay.
And then really, like, if they're fighting you tooth and nail on that assignment, then I would say then you need to pick something off of the other list. Because again, it's not about learning like the schoolwork, it's about learning in this season that we're in right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions that anyone wants to ask? I think we have time for one more. You can
Hannah.
Hannah.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi guys. Is Rowan in kindergarten?
She's in a pre-K program, but yeah.
Do you teach your kids at the same time, or do you teach them like work with one while the other one does something and then switch? Or I'm trying to find a balance. I tried doing the back and forth and it didn't go well, and then I started doing them together because they're only a grade apart, and that's not going well either. It's just they're too chaotic, so I can't figure out how to do it.
I would say I would do them back to back for you for ease. And I would flip them. And so while one is working, the other has like whatever the hot commodity of free time is in your house, like the big ticket item to keep them like away. And then I would flip it. And then the next day I would reverse the order. So that if a student isn't on board or they're being super defiant, then they could lose that free time instead of the next day. If that makes sense. Yeah. So, and I would do no more than 45 minutes at a time for that age.
Yeah, definitely.
Like maximum, like 30 minutes to 45 minutes max.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. And Daniel, I have a question to kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
For you, what has been one of your biggest challenges with your kids in quarantine, and two, what you feel like is your biggest win with them?
My biggest challenge is tapping into their self-sufficiency. Like that sense of belief that they are capable beings and that they can have autonomy. And also helping, particularly my third grader, with her like a severe sense of loss she loves school. It's her favorite thing in the world. So she, for example, will not FaceTime or have any interaction with any of her friends from school because it's so upsetting to her to see them, but she can't be with them because our kids don't have phones or anything. So it's not like she's not used to communicating that way. So I think tapping into that autonomy has been challenging because I work mostly with teens, but now, I'm all in, and that, I guess that becomes the reverse side of the coin, is that just the time gift of doing things like sleeping in a tent in the backyard on the middle of the work week, or making them breakfast every day, and teaching my 5-year-old to ride a bike, things that I would have been too busy to do a few weeks ago. I struggle every day. One day I feel like, I can do anything. This quarantine's nothing. And the next day I'm like, oh my God. And I don't know what I want to do, nothing pleasant. So I think just regulating my own emotions as a person, and trying to compartmentalize my stress, what I can control versus what I can't control. Excuse me.
And then as like a last thing, for any of the parents that are here that feel like you're okay. You have COVID? Okay. So for the parents that are here that might feel like they're drowning, that they're not good enough, whatever it may be that is bringing them down and making them
I'm joking. I'm so sorry.
Put your hands up. Put both your hands up to open your airway. Yeah.
Good job.
That is so Latin. I love it. Okay. Okay.
Pastor Jonathan, good job.
So, what would you say to a parent? It's like a 30-second, like, pick me up, and make it like super heartfelt, close to the camera, so that people know that it's to them.
Me? I'm like, I can hardly breathe right now. Having allergies apparently.
I'm a nurse. Can I help you?
My kids are banging on the door. What I would say is that, again, this isn't about perfection, it's about progress.
Yeah.
And reset, if today was a bad day, tomorrow's a new day. And
Yeah, I love that.
what you focus on, you get more of. And so at least for me, like one of my primary addictions is worry. I love to worry. I'm very good at worrying. I can worry about anything. If you give me something to worry about, I will worry about it better than anyone who can worry about it. So for me, I've really focused on keeping better worry hours. Keep better worry hours. Give yourself time to worry, but cage them and be like, you know what, from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, I'm going to worry. And from 2 o'clock to 11 o'clock, I'm not going to worry. And so I have a gratitude journal and I have a worry journal. And when things are really eating at me, I have to get them out of my heart and onto paper. And it helps, it's sort of that worry detox. And that's something that helps me. But your kids will always remember how you handled this. No pressure, but this is one of the most defining times of our lives. And they are going to remember how you handled it. So this is something that's so deep that will go into long-term memory banks. So with that, it's okay to mess up. You don't have to be perfect, but when you reset the next day, don't be afraid to apologize, and don't be afraid to, just own it and, and be honest and vulnerable about your own feelings, because kids learn vulnerability from their parents, and it's a very important skill to have and to use to be a successful adult, in my opinion.
I love that. I love that. So I love because the Bible says it's the grace of God that is new every single day. If we
Right.
can find the grace of God that's new every day, we can apply that for our kids, for our own life. We are no parents yet, but we are thinking. I think it's beautiful what you say, and we can rest in that truth that we are not perfect. We will never be perfect, but resting in the grace of God in our life, and He is with us. He can help us with dealing with everyone, with their families, me and my wife. It's beautiful what you say.
Yeah. And I'm seeing some comments about people who are, if your kids are going to at you, they're going to come at you. They're going to take it out on you. And that is, guess what? Standard operating procedures, because nobody loves somebody like their mother. Nobody loves somebody more than their mother. That's just a fact.
Mhm.
And so people come at their moms because they know their moms will be there the next day and they'll love them harder than they did the day before. And so sometimes you have to understand that those comments are not directed at you. They are just, you are a pass through, and you have to let it move through you like air, like just let it move through you, because what you choose to gravitate toward, that's on you, because you do have that emotional regulation as an adult. So don't get into a back and forth. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. And you just have to keep your head up and figure out what your circle of support is. And this is one of them. Like, this is a good circle of support. So if you're not activating a circle of support, then do it. And if you guys want to do another one of these, we can do another one of these. I'm of service, and I feel like that is what helps me keep my own sanity. So if anybody else wants to meet again, I'm here for that.
Awesome.
Wow.
Thank
Yes, thank you. Thank
So,
you, Daniel.
Just getting a water. I'm back.
You can remember this.
So I just want to close, you guys, with encouragement for you. Thank you for being here and for looking for ways that you guys can be a better parent to your kids, whether they're telling you the worst mom ever or they're throwing a temper tantrum or whatever. I'd like to say to you guys, you're doing a great job.
Yes.
We are so encouraged and inspired by you, and you guys are champs. And we're here for you if you need anything, especially for our youth fam. And I know Brittany and Hannah are a huge part of kids, and they can be here for you. But after this, we're going to be posting all of the resources that Daniel has mentioned on the newportchurch.com/parenting night link. So what you use to get more information, that's where we'll post all of the resources. We'll also, eventually by tomorrow, we'll post a video of this Zoom recording plus what you guys just watched. So if you want your friends
Yes.
or other family
Yes.
members to be able to watch this, they can. And we'll also post Daniel's website if you need some individual coaching or advice. And we'd also love to have you guys join us on Sunday for Newport Church.
That's right.
And so
And last thing, I'm just gonna do a shameless plug because I worked for the last year on a book, and it's out on Amazon. It's called Recover EDU, and it is a guide to mental health in schools. And it is just a very approachable, story-driven book about how to talk to your kids and what to look for and how to help them regulate and what your resources are as a parent, especially in the school setting. So if you have a school-going child, it's a quick read and consider a purchase.
Well, Daniel, I just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone. What you shared is brilliant.
Thank you.
And personally, for me, very liberating as well. So many great takeaways, so many great things so many great tips and so many pointers for where to go in the future. So thank you.
Yeah.
Really appreciate your wisdom. And you're not talking about this like an academic, although you are an academic. You're talking about someone who's in the thick of it with kids. And you're navigating this yourself. So real. And I think it would be awesome to do this again.
Absolutely.
I think everyone here would concur with that. Let's work out a time. Hopefully this is not going to go on too much longer, but who knows? We don't know. We've just got to keep doing it day by day. So thank you, Daniel.
Absolutely.
We love you and appreciate you. And what a blessing tonight's been. So glad that we could do this together.
Absolutely. All right. We'll talk soon, guys. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.